Home court, open door. Eala's Manila night became a turning point for Philippine tennis. On a humid Monday night in Manila, the Rizal Memorial Sports Complex sounded different. The familiar echoes of basketball sneakers and volleyball cheers gave way to the crisp thud of a tennis ball, met each time by a crowd that leaned forward, phones raised, breath held. This was not just another sporting event squeezed into the city's packed calendar. This was something the Philippine tennis community had waited years to see. Eala, the country's brightest tennis star, was finally playing a WTA Tour match at home. Her 6-1, 6-2 win over Elena Kariva in the opening round of the Philippine Women's Open was decisive, but the scoreboard barely captured the weight of the moment. For Eala, ranked number 49 in the world, it felt like time folding in on itself. I think it's such a full-circle moment to see how far tennis has come in the Philippines, she told the crowd afterward, standing on the same courts where she once played as a junior prospect. Playing in this match and seeing my two worlds collide, being in Manila and in a WTA Tour event, is a full-circle moment. She switched to Filipino, her voice catching as the applause swelled. She spoke of a dream imagined long before ranking points, prize money, or international recognition. A dream of playing on a world stage without leaving home. The Philippine Women's Open was designed with Eala in mind. It is no coincidence that the WTA's first event in the country arrived just as her rise captured national attention. But what unfolded Monday night went beyond one player's journey. Eala did not simply win a match, she opened a door. Inside that door stood players like Elizabeth Abarque, who found herself in the main draw of a WTA event almost by surprise. "I couldn't even believe I was in the main draw," she said. "I thought I was only in the qualifiers. I'm happy about it." Abarque's tournament ended quickly, as did the campaigns of fellow wildcards Teniel Mides and Kay Emina, but their presence mattered. For the first time, Filipino players were not watching a WTA event on screens or following updates from abroad. They were inside it, sharing locker rooms, courts, and routines with seasoned professionals. That proximity changes ambition. It gives shape to what once felt abstract. Eala understood that pressure came with expectation, but she framed it differently. "Of course it's added pressure playing at home," she said. "But it's nothing compared to the pressures that regular everyday Filipinos have to face providing for their families." It was a reminder that her success is measured not only in wins but in visibility. Each match is a signal to young players that a global tennis career does not have to begin with a plane ticket out of the country. Around her, the tournament unfolded like a snapshot of women's tennis across regions. Thailand's Lonlana Terrordi upset Switzerland's Simona Waltert. Colombia's Camila Osorio charmed the crowd with her warmth, declaring, "I think you guys are really warm. I like this country." Japanese, Ukrainian, Belgian, and New Zealand players moved through the draw, turning Rizal Memorial into a crossroads of styles and stories. For Filipino fans, it was a rare chance to see that world up close, to realize that professional tennis is not an unreachable spectacle but a living, breathing circuit that can pass through Manila. Eala now moves on to the second round, where the competition will stiffen and the narrative will shift back to rankings, matchups, and expectations. Yet whatever happens next, her opening night has already done its work. In a country where tennis has long existed on the margins, Monday night offered proof that the sport can command attention, inspire belief, and create pathways. Eala walked through a door she once dreamed about. Behind her, a generation is lining up, no longer asking if the door exists, but when their turn will come. It hums, honks, sweats, breathes, an endless chorus of jeepneys rattling like loose change, vendors calling out syllables sharpened by heat, and a sky that never quite goes dark. Under those lights, tennis is not supposed to feel at home. Tennis belongs to manicured lawns, quiet applause, and places where silence is respected like a rule. But that night, Manila made space for it. The court sat like an island of green and blue amid the noise, ringed by faces that did not grow up watching Wimbledon finals or memorizing rankings. These were faces that knew traffic, knew brownouts, knew the long math of sacrifice. They leaned forward not because they understood every angle or strategy, but because one of their own was there, racket in hand, shoulders squared, breathing the same humid air they did. Eala did not walk onto the court as a guest. She walked on as a return. For years, Philippine tennis had lived mostly in imagination, on highlight clips, in junior tournaments abroad, in the hopeful conversations that always ended with, maybe someday. Tennis here was a sport of distance. Distance from resources. Distance from tradition. Distance from belief. Courts existed, yes, but they felt borrowed, like borrowed time. That night in Manila, the distance collapsed. Home court is not just about geography. It is about permission. Permission to be loud. Permission to care. Permission to believe without irony. When Eala struck the ball, the sound was sharper than usual, not because the strings were tighter, but because the air itself seemed to listen. Every rally stretched a thread between her and the crowd, pulling them closer with each exchange. This was not the polite clap of tennis crowds trained in restraint. This was the kind of cheering that rises from basketball courts and barangay fiestas, raw and unfiltered. It was messy. It was joyful. It was unmistakably Filipino. And something important happened in that mess. Eala had spent much of her young career learning how to leave, how to train far from home, how to adapt to foreign courts, foreign crowds, foreign expectations. Like many Filipino athletes, she learned early that excellence often required departure. You go where the doors are already open. But Manila did something radical that night. It opened a door of its own. With every point, the idea of tennis in the Philippines shifted from novelty to possibility. Not someday. Not elsewhere. You could feel it in the way kids pressed against the railings, eyes wide, gripping imaginary rackets. You could feel it in the older fans who came out of curiosity and stayed out of pride. You could feel it in the silence before a serve, the rare, reverent hush where a city held its breath. This was not about a single match or a single result. Turning points rarely announce themselves that cleanly. They arrive quietly, disguised as moments, and only later do we realize the ground has moved. Eala's Manila night was one of those moments. Because what she represented was not perfection, but access. She made the path visible. She made the dream legible. She turned tennis from something watched from afar into something that could be touched, argued over, obsessed about. Home court does that. It collapses the gap between spectator